South Africa is just the latest country to make it more difficult for their citizens to leave the tax net. And if you want to go overseas and legally reduce your taxes, now is a good time to do it, because we're seeing more countries like South Africa inch closer towards US-style citizenship-based taxation, where no matter where you live, you still need to pay taxes to the country that you're a citizen of. In this video, I'm going to tell you not only what South Africans need to know, but also why this impacts everyone else and how the rules are changing. Hey guys, I'm Andrew Henderson, and for years I've been telling you about the importance of entrepreneurs and investors going offshore to legally take back control, reduce their taxes, move their businesses offshore, and go where they're treated best. You can learn more about how we help people do that at nomadcapitalist.com. But what I want to talk about today is South Africa. There are some lessons not only for South Africans, but also for people all around the world with what's happening. And I've been telling you that it's harder and harder to go overseas. Now, up until now, the United States has been effectively the only country that taxes its citizens no matter where they live. That does not mean that if you're a U.S. citizen, you cannot go offshore and enjoy substantial tax benefits. What it does mean is it's more difficult. You need to file taxes. You have to file tax returns. There's certain regulations and rules that you're subject to, and you're probably not going to be paying zero. You're going to be paying somewhere in the single digits or low double digits. Now, for everyone else, you have been able to use a process where you leave your country, you cut your ties. There's different ways to do that. It's become more difficult over the years. But once you cut those ties, once you got a decision letter, or once you were clear, you no longer had to worry about paying tax to Canada, to Australia, to France, to South Africa, to wherever it is that you're from. Well, what we've seen recently is more governments coming out with exit taxes, where if you have any kind of assets, if you're moving a business overseas, they want to have one last bite at the apple. And so exit taxes are becoming more and more of a thing. They're becoming more and more enforced and more difficult. So if you're planning on building a big empire and then just moving it overseas tax-free, it's becoming a lot more difficult. And it always has been in some regard, but becoming more difficult. Now what I see is more countries coming out and toughening up those rules to leave. That's what's happening in South Africa right now. Now, the old school way of thinking about offshore tax that may have worked back in the days of The Wolf of Wall Street or The Firm or whatever movies talked about this offshore world, it has nothing to do with reality. But in the 2020s, these rules no longer apply, where people will say, oh, if I don't spend 183 days in my country, I don't pay tax. And so people would say, oh, I'll spend 182 days and then I'm cool. It's not how it works, because countries, especially Western countries, have imposed more and more rules like center of life test, mind and management test, ordinary residence test, resides test, all kinds of different tests in different countries. Every country has their own different tests. Some countries have 2, some have 3, some have 4, etc. What South Africa is doing is they're basically, through their new budget process, they're going to have 2 main tests. They're going to have a physical presence test, which means are you physical present in the country for the majority of the time, or the ordinarily resident test, the ordinarily resides test. This is where I think a lot of people are going to get tripped up, because the government has come out and said that they're going to make it tougher to get out of the process and out of the tax net through a process called financial emigration. If you're a South African citizen and you would like to go offshore, now is the time to act, because the process of financially emigrating takes months. Isn't that convenient, by the way? You can't just leave the country and say, hey, I'm done. There's a process that has to be gone through, and it takes a while. It's like the bank that takes an extra day to credit the money back to your credit card. They can keep the money and they can use it, right? The government's going to make you wait to formally get out of its tax net. And so that's one way to make it more difficult. They're also being more stringent in enforcing this. And so some of the challenge with some of these tax tests in countries where you can leave their tax net is they are somewhat subjective. I've talked before about the scorched earth versus scalpel approach that I made up. The more things you can just get rid of in your home country, the better chance it will be for you to leave your country and to leave the tax net. People want to hold on to certain things. I want to store my surfboard in a storage unit. I want to keep my classic car garage, and I want to keep that boat in the marina, and I want to keep some bank accounts, and I want to not pay off my student loan. I want to do this, and I want to do that. The more of that you do, the more connection you have to the country, and the harder it will be to leave. And so that's what South Africa, I think, is going to do. They've, again, come out and basically said they're going to make it more difficult. They're going to say, if you pass both tests, then you'll be clear, you can leave the country, you can financially immigrate, you're good. If you fail either one of the tests, then you could be taxed on your entire worldwide income. What they're basically saying is they're going to make it more inclusive to where even expats may fail the ordinarily resident test. And so that means you're going to have to make a decision on what you're going to keep in South Africa. I think more people are going to need to cut some of their ties to South Africa. And I think that more people need to act quickly because the government is going to move closer towards a tax system where it is citizenship-based taxation. I told you many years ago, I said the United States, it is their culture. You know, people who live there say it's the best country in the world. How dare you leave? Even when I left, before I expatriated and handed back my passport, I just lived overseas. People would call me a traitor. That's a culture in the United States I think is more prevalent than other countries. I know folks from the UK, for example, that moved to Dubai. No one's calling them a traitor. They pay zero tax in Dubai. They don't pay anything to the UK. No one treats them as a traitor. In fact, they get invited to the British consulate for high tea once a month. But the United States has the unique position where they can just come out and say, everyone pays, period, end of story. But I've been telling you for years, more countries will come and they'll do it through the back door. South Africa now has the biggest backdoor approach, in my opinion. Other countries like Australia, Canada, and other Western countries have made it quite difficult. Norway is another one. Germany is not easy. A lot of the European countries are not easy. You can still do it. But what you have to understand is, number one, the time to act is sooner than later. If you're planning on going offshore, you should probably do it. Just get it done with before they keep tightening things more, because that's what's happening in South Africa. Basically, everyone I'm talking to in South Africa, all the lawyers, all the tax experts, we work with some folks from South Africa, and we've been talking to our network. They say basically very clearly the government's going to make it more difficult to leave, and they're going to try and keep more people in the net, even if you don't live there. And so they're not going to come out and say that necessarily, but they're going to just do it. Okay? And we know that's how the government works a lot of times. Not every government can afford or wants to come out and just say, you're paying. But they'll use all these kind of sneaky measures to basically keep you in there. That is the future of where this is going. And so again, if I'm leaving a country, I want to make as clean of a break as possible. I know that's difficult for some folks, but this is why we talk to 7- and 8-figure entrepreneurs. What's more important to you? Storing your surfboard in your mother's basement or saving $3 million in the next 5 or 10 years? You're going to have to make some choices. I've never said this is the easiest thing in the world to do. For me, it was easy. I didn't want to live in the United States, and so it was a very easy process for me. Oh, I get to save a bunch of money on tax too? Great. Some of you, the only reason you want to move is because you want to save money on tax. And if that's you, I would say do it now. Find ways to create your lifestyle overseas. Find ways to establish ties overseas. Cut your ties at home. Certainly Nomad Capitalist is helping a number of folks do this. There's a lot of boxes that we check when someone is leaving their country. And we work with tax lawyers and tax professionals in every country to make sure we're checking all those boxes for folks. But the number of boxes is getting bigger by the year. South Africa is just one example of that. The clock is ticking down until early 2021 for South Africans. For everyone else, I expect to see more of these backdoor measures, and so it's best to act sooner than later. How can Nomad Capitalist help you? 4 ways. Number 1, subscribe to our channel and click the notification bell to make sure you get our new video every day. Number 2, get a copy of Nomad Capitalist, the book. You'll learn a lot of my personal experiences over a dozen years of studying this stuff, as well as exactly some of the strategies that you can use to build your Nomad Capitalist plan. Number 3, if you're not sure where to start, but you want to come and learn from my team and I, you want to come and mingle with like-minded people, learn more about our live conference, Nomad Capitalist Live. It's coming up soon. And number 4, if you want some help right now because you've got a burning issue, you need something solved, you want to lower your taxes, get a second passport, or build the Nomad Capitalist lifestyle of your dreams, go to nomadcapitalist.com and click on Become a Client.